family. My father has it. I have it. My sister has it. You have that power too.
Awakens.
Cool.
What did we think about the build up to that movie, and then when you first saw it in theaters? What were your thoughts, Noel?
Well, my thoughts were, okay, Lucas is going to say, I'm not going to touch this, I'm selling this to Disney, moving away, I have enough money, but I still think he makes money in the back end, but hey, whatever. Then you get JJ takes it over and kind of really does what us fanboys do, is let's just kind of, let's bring back the old characters. Let's kind of wrap it up. Let's kind of keep it going in a different direction. And the premise for me made clear sense. I mean, the way it starts off, the search for Skywalker. So I was like, all right, we're interested in that, and it moves. For a Star Wars fan, I liked it. It was a nice way to give homage, as you could say, to the older, those of us who grew up on the original films. But more importantly, to kind of say, yeah, we're sorry for the first 3 films, and this is kind of where we're going. And I saw it twice, man. I really enjoyed it. The Force Awakens really, and when it comes on, I watch it just to see the way that the characters all fit in. When Han and Chewie on, we're cheering. When when we see Leia, we're cheering. We see C-3PO. We see these things and they all come together.
Even
and
Luke
the fact
at the
that
end.
It was kind of, Han and Chewie had to kind of have another adventure. Yeah. That really, I was really happy. I was like, yeah, I was happy.
For me, one of the things that it brought up is, not a lot of people know this, but my dad looks exactly like Harrison Ford. My dad has looked like Harrison Ford throughout his life. And then when I see this, do we need to say spoilers again for this? Okay.
We've been on long enough. People know they're going to be.
When Han Solo died, it really struck home for me, because you touch on a lot of these things like non-object permanence, and people can die, and even popular characters like Han Solo. It was right around the time that I found out my dad had ALS, and then it's like, oh, hey, Han Solo, bam, and I'm just like, fuck, no, and I'm sitting there in the theater just trying to hold back tears, and it was emotional. It was very emotional, that whole film, hearing the Millennium Falcon again for the first time in a long time, seeing Han and Chewie. And the new cast did an amazing job. You have Rey, you have what was his stormtrooper designation? Finn.
FN 8. Oh god,
something.
Yeah, but you have Finn did a really great job. The controversy, the controversy about a black stormtrooper pissed me off so bad, because I was like, bro, they're not clones. You know, they're conscripted, and you find out that they're not only conscripted, they're like torn and reprogrammed.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great move. I thought it was a great way to introduce people of color to the Star Wars universe when you only had Billy D. Williams. And then you also bring in a lot more people just in general to a series.
The Force Awakens was the start of the soft reboot phase. You know, in the past, companies, have toyed with bringing back movies that, have not made a movie in many, many years and mostly failed. But, JJ and Disney found a right way to have that soft reboot. And what folks don't realize, if you don't realize what a soft reboot is, what it is, it's essentially a reboot. You're telling the same story again, but you're also including it in the same universe. Yeah. So it is a reboot. I mean, a reboot is essentially a retelling of the same story with different characters, but with a soft reboot, you're still setting it in the same world, so you have the ability to essentially, when done right, please everybody. You can please the longtime fans, and you can create new fans along the way. Yeah. The trailers for The Force Awakens, the two that I remember, the first teaser where you see John Boyega pop up in the desert, little shots here and there. Then it's darkness, and all of a sudden the Star Wars music hits, and you see the Millennium Falcon flying through the desert. That brought tears to my eyes. And then
goosebumps.
The second teaser that ended with Chewie, "We're home."
Oh man,
that was. I mean, at the end of the day, The Force Awakens is a remake of A New Hope. Let's be honest. It doesn't stray too far from that formula. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because, like Everybody Loves Raymond, the TV show, there's nothing original about it, but it was done extremely well.
Yeah. But it's a classic movie formula. I think just nothing was wrong with that. We expected it, and it was done in a way that was believable. It was done in a way that proved about the Empire's, I guess, constant, treachery, which is really, this one, instead of destroying a planet, they're destroying galaxies. So you get to see you really get to see the size of how they've grown. Yeah. And I think that's also good for us fans, because it's like, that makes sense. It's like 40 years later. Yeah, even though, they stopped, constructing the new Death Star. I mean, come on, the Empire still's been taking care of business. Yeah. So, and we learned about Ren, Kylo Ren. Yeah, Kylo Ren. And we start learning more about that and the situation, and about the and what makes sense to find out who he is, and it's like all these things kind of it was acceptable. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, okay, that makes sense. I believe it. I got it.
And it was a return to form.
That's literally my feeling.
I really liked that it kind of pointed to a cycle. It's like, hey man, it's been a long time, but we've been here before. You have someone who's trying to struggle to control power, and then you have people rebelling against it, and you see similar tropes like the Death Star, and then you have Starbase Killer.
But then they also did kind of play with that a little bit too. Like Kylo Ren, I'm glad that they showed him as kind of unstable
and emotional.
Very emotional.
Yeah, very emotional.
Yeah, I mean that they could have played that. They could have played him as a lot more traditional mustache twirling villain, but they gave him some. You got some glimpses that he's really trying to fight the positive feelings that are running through his head.
Totally. And you get a real good sense of his power in the very beginning. He just is like, oh, I'm just gonna hold this blaster into place. And then it was really, really cool seeing him, because in the very beginning, man, he's just scary. He is just not a person to be fucked with. And then once you see him remove this mask, you see him remove these walls of vulnerability, and he just becomes this insecure child, which was very, very interesting to see as well. One of the funniest scenes for me was he got really, really angry and just started beating the shit out of the console with his sword. That was Oh man, it was so good.
They cut to the scene outside the room, and then stormtroopers were walking away.
Oh man, he had a few scenes like that where he's like, "Sir, she got away," and he just fucking destroys the console. And he's like, "Anything else?" And he's like, "The droid was with her."
Now, let's bring up Rey. Now, when it first came out, screenwriter Max Landis, who, words come out, he's not the greatest human being in the world, but Max Landis had some critiques of the character Rey, essentially calling her a Mary Sue. A Mary Sue being, it's based off of old fan fiction stories where somebody essentially writes themselves into an established universe. I guess it started with Star Trek or something like that, and then it's a fictionalized version of themselves. They know everybody in the established universe, and they have all the powers, and they can do everything. And
it's like fan fiction, like you said, right? Yeah. Okay, I get that trope. I disagree. I feel like Rey was kind of thrown into the whole situation when the fucking war just fell on top of her.
I think the critique with her, though, is the fact that, one, when she was on the Falcon, she was able to fly it so expertly during some scenes, and I guess at the end with her battle with Kylo Ren, when she was more than adequate with a lightsaber, when apparently that was her first time using one.
She had, you could tell from the very beginning that she was very proficient with her staff. You could tell that she was already an established pilot, because, she built her own speeder. She has been living on a planet essentially with scrappers, where she's essentially trying to make something out of nothing. Mm-hmm. So your ability to pick something up quickly is a necessity in something like that.
Yeah. What do you think, Noel?
I thought her character was well established. Like kind of you said, Sterling, she was a scrounger, survivor. This thing of not wanting to leave the planet. So when BB-8 comes on the scene, she gets drawn into this adventure. Then meets Finn. They take off, and as more she said she wants to go back home, it's like there's no need for that. So you have a main character development that something is pulling her. Mm-hmm. So we later find out it's the Force. So the Force is pulling her in a certain direction, because we know the Force deals with emotional, control. Mm-hmm. So we start to realize that Rey is, not towards the end, when she, loosens the bonds and starts to kind of have enough control of it, we see that there's a reason for this. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. I thought the character was strong. I thought the acting was great, and it's one of the few films I would say that came out that year that I was not disappointed. I saw it twice. Yeah, so I've seen the movie twice. There's something about it that I like, and for being a Star Wars fan, I was like, part of me is like, let me watch this and let me be the hater, and I want it to be hate. And I'm like, nah, I can't hate on this one. It was for me as a fan. It was like I said earlier, it was a big. We're sorry. Thank you for sticking with us. Yeah. Here you go. That's really what I thought of it when I saw it.
I loved the practical effects in that movie. Everything from the puppets and the costumes to the bread.
Explosions.
The bread.
And that's another critique of the prequels. If you look at the documentaries, most of that film was shot on a soundstage with blue screen, which really does kind of inhibit what actors can do. Like in Episode 3, when Anakin meets up with Mace Windu and says, Palpatine is a Sith Lord, and they describe it in the Red Letter Media Mr. Plinkett review as they don't even take what could be considered as a brisk walk to go and actually take care of that, when with practical effects filmed on an actual location, they would have been running, there would have been a lot more emotion to it. And the fact that they did go back to practical and not rely upon CG as much, the fact that they actually filmed on location as much as possible gave the actors a lot more freedom to put more emotion into it. I mean, I think that if anything, George Lucas directing the prequels was an exhibit of what happens when you get a lazy lazy director because he didn't want to get up and not have his coffee near him.
I don't want to go.
I think it's a little different than that. I think that I would disagree. I think Lucas just really felt the technology was there, and it gave you some ideas and suggestions. But I think we all kind of agreed the stories in those first 3 prequels was the problem. It wasn't the visual effects; it was the story itself.
But part of
the fact that with this one, when JJ went practical, is also price. So you're paying a lot more money for this, but the fact that Disney put money behind it. And it made sense, like I said, it felt like it just was a nod back to what it was before. And I think JJ did a good job of doing that. And with the acting and with the way it's put together, it set that up well. It was going to, and the way direction, when I saw it from the jump, I was like, yeah, you got me. From the beginning to the end, I enjoyed the film all outright.
Well, I think of one scene, though, in Episode 3 where Obi-Wan jumps down from the scaffolding to confront Grievous, and Grievous takes out his, reveals that he has 4 arms and takes out the lightsaber and does that quick spin. Obi-Wan does not even react when you would think if it happened in real life, he would have blinked at the very least or be startled a bit, because in the movement that General Grievous did with Obi-Wan not moving, in reality, Grievous could have easily cut him down. And it's relying upon technology so much that really takes you out of it at times, because your brain can, essentially subconsciously detect that, what you are seeing is not reality. You, even though computer-wise, with the landscapes that they were able to do in Episode 3, making it look like a big world, the actors were still reacting as if they were working within a tight, confined space of a studio, which they were. Whereas with the location shots and the practical effects, they actually have something to bounce off of. Let's go back to Episode 2, when Obi-Wan was on that planet where the clones were being made and walking down the hallways. You look at the behind-the-scenes footage, he's in a studio, and it's just blue screen. He is being told what to look at, and he has to react accordingly. Now, Ewan McGregor is a great actor, and he was able to make it look realistic. But again, he doesn't have anything really apart from his imagination to react to, which subconsciously the audience is able to detect that.
One of my favorite special effects was just this, bread Rey had. She, sprinkles this, shit into water, and then this little ball of, bread just pops out of it. And I remember just seeing the audience just whoa, you hear people say it. And I assumed it was fake, and then you look into J.J. Abrams and his talk. He did a great episode with the Nerdist podcast, and he's like, yeah, dude, it took us 6 months to figure out that bread. And I was like, what? They made that bread?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we some crazy dude, a lot of people were trying to buy the bread. They wanted it. And he's like, no, man, it tastes like fluoride. Don't. All
right, so we go on to Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Before that came out, when the teasers and the trailers came out, and then you saw it in theaters for the first time, what were your thoughts?
Ooh.
I thought it was a big kind of FU to Star Wars fans who wanted it one way, and Rian Johnson's like, nope, I'm going to take it this way, you have to deal with it. That's what I thought it was. I kind of liked it. I only seen it once. I'm going to be fair. I only seen it once. I haven't seen it again. So I meant to put that on to catch that. But, I wasn't, moved or okay. It just kept, it kept the story moving in the series, which I liked. I think that, with Laura Dern character was good. We kind of see this, the rebellion, kind of going itself. What are we going to do? Do we run? Do we fight? And I think that kind of we see the rebellion at a point. It's we're losing. We don't have a shot. What's going on? And then we also remember, Rey finding Luke Skywalker. We didn't talk about that and how her training is going, and what are some of the things that she is doing, and what Skywalker is sensing. Kind of adds some depth to it.
One of my favorite scenes is when she hands Luke the lightsaber and Luke just throws it away. you see a lot of stuff that you would expect thrown out the window, and I thought that was like the perfect representation of that, because you have all of these people who are like essentially out there writing fan fiction of what they want, and you have these people who have like GoFundMes to like reshoot Star Wars. Yeah. And you know, that scene immortalized it perfectly. It's like, here, this is what you want, this is what you expect, and we're throwing it out the window. Like you have to contemplate, like, you have a character like Luke who's fucked up a few times, and he acknowledges that, which is a lot of growth and development on his part. You also have to think about how long this guy's been isolated by himself, and really afraid of his own abilities. And when you get a thing that essentially turns what you expect on its head, you get a lot of angry people. I saw this movie a few times because I saw it, I was like, I don't know how I feel. I saw it again, I enjoyed it. There are things that I could probably say if you took it out of the movie, you wouldn't be missing a movie. Finn and what's her name? Rose's adventure to the gambling planet. If you took that away, I feel like you would still have a pretty okay movie.
Yep, I agree. That was one scene. They could have either expanded it, which would have made more sense,
yeah,
or just cut it out,
or just give it more impact. Like, oh, hey, we cut this thing off at the head, and now they don't have any funding to the Empire, or something. Give me something.
Well, I mean, they went with that scene to get the Benicio del Toro character, and they were hinting at the Benicio del Toro character essentially doing what Lando did in Empire Strikes Back in terms of turning on them and then, ultimately saving them. But right now, for me, I would say it's not my favorite Star Wars movie. I don't think it's bad. It's not Attack of the Clones bad by any means. But I also think that this is one that we have to view in context after Episode 9 comes out. Totally. Because, if you look back with movie reviews for The Empire Strikes Back, it was not globally accepted as the best Star Wars movie at the time.
Totally.
People were skeptical. Mm-hmm. Some people liked it, but most people didn't realize where it was going on. It took Return of the Jedi coming out and a few years for it to essentially marinate for people to understand its importance to that story. So I think for now, people are not really going to get a true sense of where it stands and its importance until after Episode 9.
And I completely agree with you on that. Because you don't see the impact of some of the actions that have yet to occur. I really liked the fact that, to me, in my mind, if I was watching that film, it appears to be Empire Strikes Back, but in reverse. So, like, it ends on this weird snowy-looking planet, but it ends up being salt, and then you have these people trying to escape, and then you have, like, training. So it was really, really weird.
I did like the fact that they didn't try to give the impression that, events that happened 30, 40, 50 years ago in that universe are still being talked about in the present time as if they were happening in the present time. Because, again, you think about modern times. Do people really sit back and does the general public really sit back and talk about General Eisenhower during World War II on a regular, consistent basis? No, they do not. Times change, and heroes from one generation go and just fade away with the sands of time, like anybody else. And I think that is one good thing that The Last Jedi did, and that's acknowledging the fact that just because we as fans can appreciate everything that has happened in that story doesn't mean that the characters who have to live that every single day are still focused on events that happened 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago in some cases.
Totally.
Yeah.
I will say one thing that I noticed between Episode 7 and 8, and I feel like we've overlooked it as well, is Snoke as a plot device. because you have this introduction of this like big ominous scarred up dude in like the first one, and you don't really have any sort of semblance, and you're like, okay, this guy essentially took power during the collapse of the Empire,
right?
And you have no frame of reference to where he has been, where he's going, and like with all of his like scarred and fucked up body, you just have all these questions. And then in the major fight scene in episode 8, you have more questions than answers. And like with a lot of established characters like Boba Fett and Darth Vader and General Grievous and even Mace Windu, you have like a little bit of background into what these characters' motivations are. You don't see that with Snoke, and it felt like he was a plot device to again cut down and have a vacuum.
We have to remember, though, that it has been reported and officially confirmed that J.J. Abrams, when he first signed on for Episode 7, had 7, 8, and 9 outlined out.
Totally.
And Rian Johnson, when he came on board, took that outline and tossed it away.
Like Luke's lightsaber.
So which is not necessarily a bad thing. Again, we will have to ultimately see what this is how this is going to be presented in context. But one thing I did sort of like about the Episode 8 was stuff like, Snoke being killed.
Yeah.
Because in between 7 and 8, there were a lot of fan theories on Reddit, on Twitter, and all kinds of places on, like Rey's parentage. Who are her parents? Luke's going to be her father. Snoke is probably Darth Plagueis or something. And then Rian Johnson just said, he's just some guy who's now dead. Even though word has it that Andy Serkis may be back as Snoke in Episode 9.
Well, if you paid attention and were like a pretty decent Star Wars fan and saw Solo, or if you watched the Clone Wars TV show, Darth Maul's not dead. Mm-hmm. So like, getting cut in half doesn't essentially mean dead. Even if you were cut in half by multiple lightsabers. So I would say he may or may not be dead. It'd be fun to think that.
And it's also possible that, if the Jedi can have Force Ghost, why can't the Sith have a form of Force Ghost?
And if you paid attention in Episode 3, it seems like the Sith were the first ones to develop Force Ghosts, I think. I'm not sure.
No, I think I know what you're talking about. That's where Anakin was talking to the Emperor at the opera, Squid Lake, about how Darth Plagueis was able to create life.
Totally.
Yeah, so I don't know if that was about Force Ghost, but let's transition. Episode 9 is not out yet. There are some speculation and rumors online, but what do you want to see in Episode 9? We'll start with you, Noel.
I want to see Lando, how Lando helps out the rebellion. That's number one.
By being a badass motherfucker.
What is up with the Force connection between Rey and Kylo? What is that? What is that? That has to be talked about, because Luke kind of talked about the Force and the power of it, or how it's I guess fading or whatever. But the fact that we saw those kids in the stable have that a little bit of it. Yeah. So something is coming. Just wrap it up nicely.
Yeah.
I think so. To be honest with you, once you wrap, unless you're going to do a separate story about Finn, I think this should be the last film in the series and wrap it up.
Yeah.
We're done. Skywalker's done.
Yeah.
Solo's done. This should be this. You should put a nice coda on it. You can still do some prequels, like a prequel of Lando would really be interesting. I think people would see that. See how he got the Millennium Falcon. That in itself would be really worth catching. But I'm going ahead of myself. But like I said, I think Lando, the Force issue, and just a nice way to wrap it up with the with the Empire and the Rebellion. This either one's going to live or one's going to lose. So it would surprise me if let's say this is the end of the Rebellion gets crushed permanently. I'm cool with that. That would be reminiscent of what's happening now. So who knows? Like I said, as I always say, as a fanboy, we don't own these things, so we can only hope and pray in our fantasy how it turns out. But I'm going to see it, so that already tells us the sucker that I am.
Yeah. We totally glossed over how badass Luke Skywalker was at the end of that film, force projecting himself across the galaxy. That was like the baddest ass fucking thing ever. I love that. The only thing that I would have loved more is if Luke showed up and was like, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue you. Like, that would have been like the cherry on top of like a 10-gallon jug of ice cream.
But I think the point of that Rian Johnson was trying to make with The Last Jedi was people were relying upon the old heroes to come back and save things again.
Totally.
When at the end of the day, who really saved the rebellion? Rey, by giving them an escape from that cave.
Yeah.
Which it was great seeing Luke do his thing one more time, and we're going to see him in Episode 9 again. And if they make other episodes beyond that, I think to your point, Noel, I do think that the Skywalker saga needs to end with Episode 9, but if we have a chance to logically bring in the Luke Skywalker character as a Force ghost for an episode 10, 11, or 12, why not?
Didn't they say they were going to do like an alternate storyline, like a whole different storyline? They already got greenlit for new films.
No, they had a lot of films in the planning. The failure of Solo at the box office. They're cutting the Star Wars story spin-off movies.
Yeah.
Those are going to be ending temporarily. But Bob Iger has come out and said that there will continue to be Star Wars movies. They're just not going to come out every single year. They overestimated the appeal of what the audience really wanted. Now, as far as Episode 9 for me, I do agree that, the Skywalker saga needs to be resolved. As far as Episode 10, if they make a 10, which I don't doubt that they will, who knows what they'll do there, but I think we need to just get a resolution and move on. Nostalgia is great, but it can only take you so far. Who knows? I'm keeping my mind open. I'm intentionally trying to stay away from spoilers on this one until trailers start coming out. With JJ back at the helm, JJ does not have a good reputation in terms of being able to properly finish a product. With shows like Alias, with shows like Lost, with his Star Trek movies, great beginnings, all of them, but when it comes to actually resolving them in a manner that satisfies the audience, he's failed miserably. So that is something to be concerned about. I just
Cloverfield.
Anyway, I just don't.
We're talking about him directing or producing. Producing is one thing, but just directing, that's a little different.
Well, he's producing as well. But he is directing episode 9. And again, he just does not have a good history of being able to wrap up a story that ultimately will satisfy an audience. Now, of course, I don't anticipate anybody ever liking one movie 100% of the way. Of course, there will always be critics, but again, Star Trek Into Darkness, the finale of Lost, the finale of Alias, not the best.
Yeah. Well, he started projects like Alias and Lost with not the intention to finish it. He saw Lost as like a one-season gig that would allow him to go into Alias.
No, Alias came first.
Exactly, but he didn't start on Alias. His first product that he was given to work on was Lost. He created the universe for Lost, and then was given the reins of Alias.
His first show was Felicity, then it was Alias, and then Lost came out. I think he had the he had some involvement in the initial creation of the script, but I don't think that was necessarily all his baby from start to finish.
Regarding Henry's screenplay, you guys are talking about that's a film script he did.
Yeah, that was his first film script. But as far as TV goes, started off with Felicity. I don't think Lost. I think Lost came well into like the starting of production on Lost didn't start steamrolling until like season 2 or 3, maybe 4 of Alias.
He joined season 5 of Alias.
He created Alias.
Did he?
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams.
J.J. Abrams created Alias.
Oh. What?
Yeah.
Yes, Sterling. That's what we've been talking about.
Damn. Well, no. I was under the impression that he worked on Lost and then got Alias. That's so weird. I am completely turned around.
Well, someone's lost here, but no.
Yeah.
All right. With that, I think we will wrap things up. We are going on the 2-hour mark here, so we got a few episodes out of this, which is good. So,
do like 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
something like that.
Yeah.
But I think we talked a lot about it, and this is definitely a topic we can and will tackle again when episode 9 comes out. But I think we had a good discussion. Anybody else have any closing thoughts on Star Wars movies?
You know, it'd be really funny.
It's always good to watch them. You know, the old ones again. And it's, if you really want to geek out, if you got like a 2 days to kill, watch all them through. You can kind of see what we're talking about. But everyone has a Star Wars favorite, so that's just really good about it.
I watch Star Wars at least once a year. I do the original order, and then I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But it would be really funny if you released the episode like the second half first, and then the first half second.
Anyway, these movies at the end of the day are fun, exciting popcorn movies. I do think some fans take the concepts that are talked about in this movies way too seriously.
Totally.
No.
I know, what a shock, right? It's fun to talk about these type of movies. It's fun to be critical of them when they are made bad. But at the end of the day, this is just a modern version of the old Flash Gordon serials that our great-grandparents used to watch in the 20s and 30s and 40s.
Totally.
Keeping with the mindset of what these films are intended to do, if they're on TV, even something like Attack of the Clones, you're going to be drawn to it because it tells a simple, basic story of good versus evil, with good winning at the end. If somebody were to come along and try and make it much more complicated, then you may have some problems there. But when done well, it shows the power of what these types of films can do. And, especially in times that we have today, it is important to have those distractions in your life to where you can escape to a different world, even if for a couple of hours at a time, and just enjoy yourself, because life can be way too stressful to not just sit back and relax a little bit. And if you're doing that with the Skywalker clan and seeing how they react to things, I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
No.
All right. So with that, another episode of Friends Talking Nerdies into Books. This is Tim Jelsma.
I'm Sterling.
I'm Noel.
With so much enthusiasm.
Well, it's midnight.
I'm Star Wars out.
Yeah.
All right. And with that, we will see you all next week.
Bye.
And with that, another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy is in the books. We thank you all for listening. This is Tim Jasma. Remember to tune in again next week when we discuss music. An open-ended topic there, but we will have a special guest, Portland, Oregon musician Crosby Neal will be here to discuss some of his favorite musical acts, musical artists, and we'll also be talking about his album as well. So remember, tune in again next week. For this week's charity focus, your friends at Friends Talking Nerdy wish to direct you to RaphaelHouse.com. From their website, for more than 40 years, Raphael House of Portland has helped domestic violence survivors and their families find safety, hope, and independence. We believe that everyone deserves to live a life free from violence. Yeah, definitely. I had this recommended thanks to a very special listener out there. Hello, Bethany. And definitely encourage you all to give, because anybody going through violence, and mostly, of course, the main victims of domestic violence, of course, are going to be women and children. 99% of them, of course, but, domestic violence of any sort is horrible. Sometimes these women, these children, find themselves in a situation where they need help right away. And organizations like Raphael House can definitely help them get to safety and also help them build their lives back up. So we definitely encourage you all to head to their website. Once again, that's raphaelhouse.com, and do what you can to support them, whether it's donating some money, whether it's volunteering with them, whether it has some you have some items you want to donate. It being that there are kids involved, I'm sure donating some toys to them as well would be a great way to give. And they also have some other things that you can do as well. But again, raphaelhouse.com. Check them out.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride. And we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account and my family. Has to be real. It's just a ride. But we always kill those good guys who try and tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok? But it doesn't matter, because it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.